Amelia was a 20-year-old girl with an undeniable sense of style. Her long honey blonde hair was always in place, her nails painted to perfection, and her Instagram feed filled with perfectly angled selfies and makeup tutorials. She loved fashion, cosmetics, and anything that made her stand out, but there was one thing she didn't love: spending her own money on expensive beauty products. Instead, Amelia had developed a quiet habit. Every few days, when the house was still and her mother was away, she would sneak into the master bedroom. Her mother's dressing table was like a treasure chest, rows of luxury foundations, lipsticks, bronzers, and brushes arranged in neat little sections. Brands like Chanel, Dior, and Charlotte Tilbury lined the drawers, and Amelia knew exactly where to reach. At first, it was innocent. A dab of foundation before a date, a swipe of her mother's red lipstick before a selfie. She always made sure to put things back exactly how she found them. But over time, it became routine, almost addictive. The excitement of not getting caught made it even more tempting. Her mother had warned her before. She had noticed small things out of place. But Amelia always brushed it off with innocent charm that she believed she was too clever to get caught, and too grown up to be punished. That it was a quiet afternoon, and Amelia believed the timing was perfect. Her mother had just stepped out to deliver something to a neighbor, and the house was calm. Without a second thought, Amelia made her way into the bedroom, confident and unbothered. She opened the dressing table drawer with practiced ease and began selecting her favorite products. The familiar scent of expensive cosmetics filled the air as she applied foundation to her face, followed by a generous sweep of blush across her cheeks. Her movements were smooth and unhurried. She had done this many times before, and never once had she been caught in the act. But what she didn't realize was that this time, her mother had been watching. The previous incidents had added up, and the warnings hadn't worked. Today, she had left the door ajar on purpose, walked slowly to give Amelia the illusion of safety, and waited just long enough for her daughter to let her guard down. As Amelia leaned in toward the mirror to fix her eyeliner, she felt a shift in the room. A quiet presence behind her. Her eyes froze. Her mother had returned silently, unexpectedly, and at the exact moment Amelia was applying the makeup she wasn't supposed to touch. There were no raised voices. No dramatic shouting. Just the unmistakable weight of disappointment in her mother's eyes, and the cold realization sinking into Amelia's chest. She had finally been caught in the middle of it. There was no lie to tell, no excuse to give. And this time, there would be no second chance. The silence in the room was heavier than any scolding. Amelia stood frozen, makeup brush still in hand, as her mother stepped inside and quietly closed the door behind her. The gentle click of the lock sounded louder than anything Amelia had heard all day. Her heart thudded, not from fear, but from the weight of knowing, truly knowing that this time was different. Her mother didn't yell. She didn't ask why. She didn't even repeat the warnings Amelia had heard before. Instead, she walked to the dressing table, picked up the wooden hairbrush, and placed it firmly on the surface. Its presence wasn't threatening, it was symbolic. A clear message that words had been wasted enough. Without saying much, her mother motioned for Amelia to bend on the table in front of the mirror, the same place where Amelia had played with stolen cosmetics so many times before. There was no resistance, no backtalk. Just a slow walk and a cold stillness that came with realization. The brush came down just once, firm, quick, and deliberate. It wasn't meant to hurt, but it wasn't meant to be forgettable either. It was a lesson, sharpened by months of ignored warnings and quiet defiance. Amelia winced, more from shock than pain, the sting settling deeper in her pride than on her skin. In that single moment, all of it sank in. The betrayal of trust, the disrespect of boundaries, the careless entitlement she'd shown, it all suddenly felt real. Tangible. She had crossed the line too many times, and now it had finally cost her something. The room was still. The brush was returned to the table. No lectures followed. The silence said everything. Amelia didn't speak. She stood up slowly, left the makeup behind, and walked out, changed, quiet, and for the first time, genuinely ashamed. The rest of the day passed in an unfamiliar hush. Amelia stayed in her room, makeup wiped off, hair pulled back, her usual energy replaced with stillness. The sting from the paddle had long faded, but what remained was the deeper discomfort, not physical, but emotional. For the first time, she wasn't upset with her mother. She was disappointed in herself. She looked at her own vanity, cluttered with cheap knockoffs and half-used palettes. Compared to her mother's collection, it was nothing. But that wasn't the real issue. What unsettled her now wasn't what she didn't have, it was what she had taken for granted. It wasn't about a lipstick. Or an eyeshadow. It was about boundaries she had crossed again and again, even after being warned. It was about the disrespect hidden in casual habits. And above all, it was about trust, something far more delicate than makeup and far more painful to lose. Later that evening, she passed by the dressing table again. The wooden paddle brush was right where her mother had left it, resting beside a tidy row of cosmetics. She didn't touch anything. She didn't even pause. Instead, she walked past it quietly, a little wiser, a little humbled, and no longer the girl who thought she could get away with anything. Some lessons don't come through warnings, lectures, or second chances. Sometimes, it takes one firm moment, a single act of discipline to shatter the illusion that we're untouchable. For Amelia, it wasn't the sting of the brush that changed her. It was the silent disappointment, the broken trust, and the realization that she had been treating privilege like a right. She had ignored the value of boundaries and dismissed every gentle correction, until the lesson came not in words, but in action. That wooden brush now sat quietly on the dressing table, not just as a tool, but as a reminder. A symbol of the day when Amelia stopped seeing herself as above correction, and finally understood what discipline truly means. Because sometimes, when repeated mistakes silence respect, discipline becomes the only voice left to speak.